Hey Optimancers, Chris here. The Tal Dore campaign setting Reborn from Critical Role is now available on D&D Beyond. So I'm doing a series of videos covering the subclasses and feats in that supplement. We're pretty close to the end for subclasses. Today I'm going to go over the Runechild Sorcerer, which is described in the supplement as having bodies that are conduits for the errant strands of power that shape the world stored in the form of natural runes. So let's just start at level 1. There's a bit to cover here at level 1, but we begin with Essence Runes. This feature says that magic runes are traced across your skin. How many? 1 per level. So at level 1, 1 rune, level 10, 10 runes. These runes don't do anything unless you spend sorcery points, whether you're using them for Font of Magic or for Meta Magic. And when you do, 1 rune charges per sorcery point spent, and charged runes power your Runechild features. If you use a bonus action to just spend a sorcery point to charge runes, then you get 2 runes charged with only 1 sorcery point. If you have 5 or more charged runes at once, you light up with magical energy, emitting light 10 feet around you, 5 feet of bright, 5 feet of dim. If you expend a charged rune, it becomes inert again until it's charged with more sorcery points. So this in itself isn't really a feature. It's more of a framework for how the rest of this subclass is going to work. So let's move on to Runic Magic. Beginning at first level, you learn additional spells whenever you reach certain levels in this class, as shown on the Runic Spells table. Each of these spells counts as a sorcerer spell for you, but it doesn't count against the number of sorcerer spells you know. When you gain a level in this class, you replace one spell you gained from this feature with another spell of the same level. The new spell must be an abjuration or transmutation spell from the sorcerer, warlock, or... Wait a minute! Does this look familiar to anyone else? Yeah, it's Clockwork Magic. They changed the name of the feature, but this is Clockwork Magic from Tasha's Clockwork Soul Sorcerer. I didn't think you were allowed to do that, but I'm not a lawyer, so let's move on. I mean, at least the base spells are different. But since you have the same rules for changing them as the Clockwork Soul Sorcerer, I would expect we'll end up with a very similar selection list to a Clockwork Sorcerer. So, Shield, Aid, Levitate, Haste, Counterspell, Polymorph, and Transmute Rock, those are all good choices. Otherwise, there are some good spells here I would likely keep, like Long Strider, Freedom of Movement, and Telekinesis. And I guess that's a full list. So I'd probably end up with Long Strider and Shield as level 1 spells, Aid and Levitate level 2 spells, Haste and Counterspell level 3, Polymorph and Freedom of Movement level 4, Telekinesis and Transmute Rock level 5. Guess that would be my suggested list. Anyways, as I've said before, the Clockwork Soul Magic feature is fantastic, and it's still fantastic even if you rename it. I'll give Clockwork just a tiny edge because they get Wall of Force. Otherwise, really close. And our final level 1 feature is Glyph of Aegis. This says when you take damage, you can expend charged runes as a reaction to reduce the damage by a d6 per charged rune expended. When you reach 6th level, you can touch a creature as an action and expend up to 3 charged runes, and the next time the creature takes damage within the next hour, it reduces damage the same way, a d6 per charged rune expended. And when you reach level 14, the d6s become d8s. So I guess the first thing I'll note here is that if I was the designer who designed the Clockwork Soul Sorcerer, I'd be feeling a bit pissed off by now, because not only are runic spells a carbon copy of Clockwork spells, but Glyph of Aegis is really, really close to the Clockwork Soul 6th level feature, Bastion of Law. Am I the only one who noticed how close the design is here? I mean, I suspect there's at least one more person who noticed. Fortunately, the rest of the subclass is quite different. But of course, talking about this feature, and I think this is infamous at this point, because as little as I heard about these subclasses before making these videos, I had heard about this one. This is a level 1 feature, and you cannot use it at level 1. This feature requires you expend charged runes, and as we already covered, you charge runes by expending sorcery points. But sorcerers don't have sorcery points at level 1, so there is no way to use this feature. I mean, at level 2, it works. And once it works, well, it's not bad. I mean, it's better than Bastion of Law since that feature requires you spend the sorcery points to reduce the damage, but here you spend your sorcery points as normal. And then you get the charged runes, and you might as well reduce some damage with them. The d6s are slightly lower than the d8s Bastion of Law uses, at least until this feature uses d8s at level 14, but still, I mean, it's essentially free because you're spending your sorcery points as normal, and then until level 6, this is the method to expend those charged runes. So, other than the rather obvious flaw at level 1, once you get to level 2, I think this is a pretty good feature. And at level 6, we get two features. The first is sigillic augmentation. Okay, there is no way sigillic is a real word. Yep, confirmed, not a real word. So, we get a new way to expend charged runes. Now, if we make a strength, dexterity, or constitution ability check, we can expend a charged rune to get advantage on the roll. And I think it's obvious, right? We use this for initiative, which is the dexterity ability check. So expend a charged rune, and you got advantage on initiative. And if we use a reaction, we can get advantage on a strength, dexterity, or constitution saving throw by expending a charged rune. But this is just once per long rest. But I guess if you don't have Warcaster, then concentration saving throws come to mind. But with the limit of once per long rest, it's a fairly small add-on. Overall, fairly good. I mean, you could probably get advantage on most of your initiative rolls pretty reliably with this. The second and sixth level feature is Manifest Inscriptions. You spend an action and one charged rune, and it reveals any hidden or invisible arcane traps, marks, wards, sensors, or glyphs within 60 feet of you, and you have advantage on Intelligence Arcana checks to discern the nature of any of those that you've revealed. And if there's a language you don't understand revealed in those, you can comprehend it. And this is okay utility, probably something you don't want to use willy-nilly, but if you expect there might be any of these things, it's probably worth a charged rune. Then at 14th level, Runic Torrent allows the Runechild to expend 2 charged runes to change the damage type of a spell to force damage, and any creatures targeted by the spell make a strength saving throw, or they're knocked prone, or push 15 feet away from the spell's point of origin, your choice. You can only use this feature once per short or long rest. Now, I don't know if I'm now just straight comparing this to Clockwork Soul, because Clockwork Soul gets a really nice feature at level 14, and this doesn't seem that great to me. I mean, Force is definitely a reliable damage type, but if reliability of damage is a concern, Transmute Spell Metamagic costs 1 sorcery point, and this is using 2 charged runes, which I would consider of similar value. Remember, you can charge 2 runes with 1 sorcery point, and then on this one you also get prone or force movement on a failed save, which is nice, but this is a 14th level feature and it's once per rest. I mean, if I was playing this subclass, I'd absolutely use this the once per rest it's allowed. I just don't think it's enough for a high level feature. I mean, Draconic Sorcerers are getting permanent flight at this level. And the final feature is Arcane Exemplar at level 18, and this allows the Runechild to use a bonus action to take an exemplar form once per long rest. While they're in this form, they get a fly speed of 60, creatures that have disadvantage to make saving throws against your sorcerer spells, you have resistance to the damage dealt by spells, and whenever you cast a spell of first level or higher, you regain hit points equal to the spell's level, which is of course the least impressive bullet point. Now, if this all sounds good, it is. But never use this without charged runes, because it lasts until the end of the turn you used it, and then it ends and you're stunned until the end of your next turn. However, if you have a charged rune, you can spend it at the end of your turn to extend the duration until the end of your next turn. And as long as you have sorcery points, then you can use your bonus action on subsequent turns to expend them to charge more runes and continue to extend this effect. And if you do that, then this is really good. It's usable once per long rest, but for that big combat, I think it would be well worth it. In fact, as you spend sorcery points through the day and build up those charged runes, it might be worth just being conservative with other uses of them to save up to fuel this feature. Another little tip, just make sure at the end of your turn you have at least 1 charged rune, or at least your bonus action and a sorcery point, or you're screwed. But it is definitely a good feature. So how does the Runechild shape up in the end? Pretty good in my opinion. I mean, yes, clearly there was some copying of the Clockwork Soul Sorcerer in the design here. There's simply no chance that runic spells and Glyph of Ages weren't just lifted from the design of the Clockwork Soul Sorcerer. And yes, there is the weird thing where Glyph of Ages is received at level 1 but not usable until level 2, but honestly, I think too big a deal has been made out of that. Sorcerer subclasses don't get features at level 2, so you give it at 1, and then it's usable at level 2. And at level 1, you get 2 extra known spells, so it's not like you're getting nothing. And overall, this is a strong subclass. And I actually like the way they've used expended sorcery points as yet another resource the sorcerer can use. It's like double the sorcery points. You spend them, then you spend them again on these subclass features, and I kind of like that. That said, it is really potent. When you start with Clockwork Soul and then figure out ways to spread their sorcery points further, that's just going to be really powerful. Weaker 14th level feature notwithstanding. So in terms of tier ranking, it's better than Clockwork Soul, which I previously considered the strongest sorcerer subclass. But I can't say this is quite broken, so I'm putting it here on A tier right ahead of Clockwork Soul. And I should probably address Lunar Sorcery from Dragonlance, which isn't on this tier chart. And no, I don't think it's as powerful, despite the longer list of spells known and the ability to stretch their sorcery points. I'd probably put them behind Aberrant Mind right here. If Lunar Sorcery could customize their extra spells, it would be different. And that's the Runechild. I'll be going over the last subclass in this supplement, the Blood Magic Wizard, in the next video in this series, and then I'm going to finish up with the new feed options. But until then, I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks everybody, and I'll talk to you soon.